renewable energy sources like solar and wind have quietly become more cost-effective than their fossil fuel counterparts in many parts of the world. But if renewables can cost less than fossil fuels, why aren't they being used everywhere? Let's dive in together to uncover the real reasons why we still burn tons of coal and natural gas to produce electricity, damaging our planet. And don't forget to hit like button and subscribe to our channel. The energy world is changing fast, with renewables starting to compete with fossil fuels. This shift, sometimes hidden by misleading information, is as important as past industrial revolutions. To understand why these matters, we need to look at the economic reasons behind it and what it means for our society and the environment. The concept of industrial revolutions provides a useful framework for understanding the current transition. These periods of rapid technological and economic change are characterized by innovations in communication, transportation, and energy production. The first industrial revolution, which began in Britain in the late 18th century, saw the rise of steam power and coal. The second industrial revolution, centered in America from the late 19th to early 20th century, was driven by oil and electricity. Now, we find ourselves in the midst of a third industrial revolution, defined by the internet, electric vehicles, and renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, and nuclear power. However, this transition hasn't been without resistance. The fossil fuel industry, with its enormous financial interest at stake, has invested heavily in efforts to sow doubt about the viability of renewable energy. Since 2016, the top 5 oil companies have spent $1 billion on campaigns designed to confuse the public about new power sources. This spending is unsurprising given the industry's profitability. These companies made $900 billion in profits over the past decade. Yet despite their efforts, the economic realities of renewable energy are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. A crucial turning point came in November 2018, when renewable energy sources like wind and solar became more cost-effective and efficient than fossil fuels. This shift was the result of dramatic technological improvements and economies of scale. For instance, the cost of photovoltaic cells for solar panels has plummeted from $76 in 1977 to a mere 50 cents today. Meanwhile, fossil fuel technologies have largely reached their peak efficiency, with little room for further improvement. The potential of renewable energy is staggering. The sun alone sends 470 exajoules of energy to Earth every 88 minutes, equivalent to the amount of energy humanity uses in an entire year. Harnessing just 1% of the sun's energy output would provide 6 times the energy currently used across the global economy. Similarly, if wind farms captured 20% of available wind energy, they could power 8 times the current global economy. These facts are driving a worldwide shift towards renewable energy, with countries like China and members of the European Union leading the charge. China, for example, was responsible for 45% of global investment in renewable energy in 2017 and aims to derive 62% of its energy from renewable sources within 30 years. In Europe, countries like Germany are making bold commitments to phase out coal entirely over the next 2 decades, investing billions in worker retraining and economic support for affected regions. The transportation sector is also undergoing a rapid transformation. 18 countries, including major economies like China, India, and France, have announced plans to phase out the sale and registration of fossil fuel-powered vehicles in the coming decade. The Bank of America projects that 40% of all car sales by 2030 will be electric. This shift is largely driven by the plummeting cost of lithium batteries, which have seen a 79% price reduction in just 7 years, from $1,000 per kilowatt-hour in 2010 to $209 per kilowatt-hour in 2017. One of the main challenges in transitioning to renewable energy is developing a grid capable of handling the intermittent nature of sources like wind and solar. However, innovative solutions are emerging, such as the concept of the Internet of Things applied to energy distribution. This smart grid would connect various power sources, computing devices, and everyday objects to create a highly efficient and responsive energy network. In the United States, studies suggest that implementing such a system could increase energy efficiency by 60% over the next 2 decades. The economic benefits of transitioning to renewable energy extend beyond reduced fuel costs. The renewable energy sector is already outpacing fossil fuels in job creation, with jobs in wind, solar, and nuclear outnumbering fossil fuel jobs by a ratio of 3-to-1. While it's true that some fossil fuel industry workers will face job losses, there are opportunities to retrain these workers for roles in the growing renewable energy sector. Examples include the construction of more efficient batteries and nuclear power plants, installation of solar panels, and development of innovative energy-generating products. Countries and regions are already reaping the benefits of embracing renewable energy. In Texas, many landowners have found a second income stream from wind farms, taking advantage of the state's abundant wind resources. In China, companies like Henergy are pioneering thin solar-powered materials for everyday items like backpacks and umbrellas, creating new industries and employment opportunities. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact on global energy consumption and emissions, with CO2 emissions expected to decrease by 8% in 2020 compared to 2019. While this reduction is noteworthy, history shows that economic crises are often followed by steep increases in emissions as economies recover. However, the 2008 financial crisis offers a potential model for a more sustainable recovery. Following that crisis, 15% of global stimulus funds were directed towards developing and deploying green technologies, resulting in a period of flattened emissions growth. As we emerge from the current economic crisis, there's an opportunity to accelerate the transition to renewable energy. This could involve creating jobs in the solar and wind industries, investing in infrastructure for smart grids and public transportation, and implementing programs to retrain workers from conventional energy industries. However, some countries have moved in the opposite direction during the pandemic, relaxing environmental regulations and pollution standards. This short-sighted approach ignores both the scientific consensus on climate change and the economic potential of renewable energy. The question of whether renewable energy is cheaper than fossil fuels is becoming increasingly clear. While the initial investment in renewable infrastructure can be substantial, the long-term economic benefits are undeniable. Renewable energy sources offer lower operational costs, are not subject to the price volatility of fossil fuels, and provide numerous co-benefits such as reduced air pollution and improved public health. Voters have a crucial role to play in this transition by supporting politicians who prioritize science-based policies and understand the economic potential of renewable energy. This includes backing initiatives to tax carbon emissions, reward green innovation, and provide just transitions for workers in fossil fuel industries. The biggest lie about renewable energy is not just that it's ineffective or too expensive, it's that we can afford to delay the transition. The reality is that renewable energy is increasingly cost-competitive with fossil fuels, and the economic and environmental costs of inaction are growing by the day. As we stand at this crossroads of the third industrial revolution, the choice between clinging to the energy sources of the past and embracing the clean, renewable technologies of the future has never been clearer or more urgent. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below the video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more news and interesting videos about renewable energy.